As every single one of you has observed at some point in our lives, the consumption of alcohol has a myriad of effects on speech and cognitive ability. Although there are still numerous amounts of testing done as to all of the effects of this substance, and on speech and brain function is one of the studies primarily focused on. Alcohol is a natural depressant, slows one's motor abilities and cognitive functions. I am confident that we have all noticed someone who has consumed too much of the sometimes toxic substance. And when we have seen this, it has been obvious that that individual's ability to function normally, just in that situation, has been substantially compromised. There is no doubt that although alcohol can ease one's social anxiety, there is also concrete evidence that the consumption of alcohol can make one feel more at ease, which can lead to adverse effects of revealing too much without thinking of the consequences when they are sober later on. First, I will be discussing how alcohol use affects speech and that an individual consuming this substance loses their inhibitions, either partially or completely. Secondly, I will be discussing how the consumption of alcohol affects speech by the slurring of words of those under the influence of the toxic substance. As stated previously, the effects of alcohol on an individual losing one's inhibitions can be very obvious. I am sure we have all been a witness to someone, whether it was a mother, father, brother, sister, friend, uncle, aunt, anyone in essence losing their moral compass due to consuming the substance. According to Stephanie Watson, in her article, How Alcoholism Works, alcohol affects the brain chemistry by altering the levels of neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters, for some of you who may not know, are the chemical messengers that transmit signals throughout the body. Continuing with this, alcohol increases the amount of chemical dopamine in the brain's reward center. For all of you science majors, you will already know what this does. But for all of the other majors, including myself, this creates a feeling of pleasure. This feeling of pleasure can be a main root cause of one's losing their inhibitions with the intake of the substance. Continuing with the biology of how alcohol affects inhibition, the cerebral cortex, or the most frontal region of the brain, is highly susceptible to the feeling of the effects of alcohol. This part of the brain is the region where consciousness and thought processing occur. Again, according to Stephanie Watson's article, in quoting Ms. Watson, alcohol depresses the behavioral and ability centers, making the person less inhibited. It slows down the processing of information from the eyes, ears, and mouth and other senses. It inhibits thought processing, making it difficult to think clearly. Through understanding the science of this better, it is easy to see why when we observe others drinking, or even ourselves, how sometimes they or we may act foolishly. The consumption of alcohol can therefore be very dangerous for those individuals who are not at a point or age of maturity. It is imperative that one must only consume alcohol once they can totally and completely understand the effects of alcohol on their body. It is also imperative for any individual to be aware of the amount of consumption, whether it be you who is consuming the substance, or a friend, or a relative, because the human body's inhibition starts slowly declining upon the first drink of the substance. It is also obvious to see how such tragedies as death, rape, permanent brain damage, bodily harm, and problems with relationship dynamics can arise very quickly. Therefore, it is not only important to know, but imperative to be aware and knowledgeable of the adverse side effects of the sometimes adored substance can have on our bodies and on our lives. The next topic that I will discuss on how alcohol affects our speech is the slurred speech that is usually accompanied by the consumption of alcohol. Firstly, I will be discussing the biology of why our speech becomes slurred and slowed down after consuming an alcoholic beverage. Again, according to the article by Stephanie Watson, How Alcoholism Works, alcohol affects the neurotransmitters within our brain. To quote Ms. Watson once again, alcohol increases the effects of inhibitory transmitter GABA in the brain. GABA causes the sluggish movements of slurred speech that occur in alcoholics. At the same time, alcohol inhibits the excitatory neurotransmitter glutamate. Suppressing this stimulant results in a similar type of physiological slowdown. Now that we are aware of biologically why our bodies slow down and therefore our speech, it is understandable why we observe an intoxicated individual slurring their words. I am certain we have all observed someone consuming too much alcohol and without even seeing them drinking or a drink in their hand, that it is obvious that that person has been consuming this substance. In fact, according to a study done by Virginia Tech University on alcohol abuse prevention, it was found that a blood alcohol concentration of 0.11 to 0.20, slurred speech begins to appear as a physical impairment. Continuing the study, a BAC of 0.21 to 0.29, a loss of consciousness occurs, which can only increase the observable effects of slurred or impaired speech. For these reasons, it is very comprehensible as to why, when an individual is under the influence of alcohol, that we observe them physically slurring their words, slowing down, and drawing out their utterances or sentences. To summarize, it is very important that we all educate ourselves and each other on the effects of alcohol. Yes, consuming this substance at a legal and mature age can be safe and enjoyable. We must always remember and be constantly aware of the negative effects of alcohol can have on not only the person consuming the substance, however, those surrounding the individual as well. To drive home this point, one last time, according again to the study done by Virginia Tech, at just a blood alcohol concentration of 0.01 to 0.06, the physical and mental impairments include thought, judgment, coordination, concentration. Concluding, alcohol can and will have substantial adverse side effects on speech, including a loss of inhibition and slurred speech, if not consumed responsibly. Thank you.